Hey everybody, this is my 10-gallon office tank. And recently I was mentioning that I put a clown Pleco in here and I was going to do a sort of time-lapse video. We were going to keep track of it and watch how much it got the tank all cleaned up based on how much daytime algae and just off-walks and other natural growth I had going on in the tank. And I never got around to shooting the before sequence to get a good look at what the tank looked like before I put the fish in there, and now the tank is just clean. It's done. So there's not really much point in even worrying about it. So it only took about a week, and now the tank is already just nice and clean. I got all the growth out of there. So that tells me it wasn't a lot of cyanobacteria, because the Plecos won't eat that. If you kill it off, apparently, and this has been my experience, if I've used the Chemi-Clean, or even when I use the Ultralife, and killed it off, then the Plecos, like a rubber lip or something like that, would go ahead and eat it and scrape everything clean. So the fact that it went ahead and did that in this tank lets me know that most of the stuff in there wasn't of that nature. You can see some cyanobacteria. If you look in that mass in the middle, you can see sometimes some really dark green matted looking stuff growing in there, and that's a little bit of cyanobacteria. Maybe we can see if we look in through the top. Well, not really. It's not light enough down in there. So a couple things I wanted to point out with this tank, which is why we're shooting this video, if it focuses. I've been talking about doing a video talking about the difference between water sprite and water wisteria, and I'm waiting for this one here on the right to start producing some offspring and some root growth and that sort of thing. And once we've got something I can point to and show you exactly what I'm talking about, and we can compare that one to this one, we'll go into a further discussion about that. In the meantime, nothing seems to be happening with this one on the right. It's a lace leaf and it's growing really, really slowly. And this one here on the left is just going nuts, and it's got babies all over it, and it's got new growth everywhere. And so what I'm probably going to do is pull this big mass out of here, put it in a bucket downstairs with some of the Chemi-Clean. It's really good stuff. I'll put a link below. If you got any kind of cyanobacteria or whatever, it just seems to clean all the crud off of anything that's growing in your tank. So I'm just going to put a little bit of it in a bucket with an air stone and let that float. I've actually got some plants in a bucket downstairs right now that are being treated, that came out of a tank downstairs. So once they're cleaned off, I'll be able to put them in my native tank. And my plan for this one is, if you are a viewer from back in the day, if you remember back when my 125 had that huge mass of water sprite in there, it just almost went from end to end in the tank and had all those flowing roots in there. That went away when that tilapia went in there, because that tilapia just devoured it. So I replaced it with Java fern, and the Java fern's doing okay, but it just doesn't have the same look. I'm not digging it like I did that water sprite. So this water sprite is probably going to replace it. And what I'll do is I'll take some of those babies and I'll just leave them in this tank, and apparently they're going to grow fast enough that by the time this thing ever gets to doing what I want it to do, those little babies will be full size, and I'll be moving them into another tank or whatever I'm going to wind up doing with them anyway. I also want to get in here and clear some of this Java fern out. I don't know what species of Java fern this is, but it's got that weird like splayed fingertip effect on the end of it. I remember when I bought it thinking it was kind of cool looking, and it is. I do like it. I just don't remember what it's called, but it's some sort of Java fern. If you know, you can certainly leave a comment down below and let me know. If not, it's not a big deal. It's just academic. It's not going to change anything. I just, don't know the name of it to be able to share that with you. And finally, I will say that one of my viewers pointed out, after I put that clown Pleco in here, that is one of the species that really needs to have wood in the tank. And I know that, I want to say the Hypancistris and the Panac species need wood in their diet. It's not something that is optional. It's not something like they prefer it or whatever. They actually need it. And if I understand it properly, they need it as part of their digestion, much in the same way that a bird will eat grit or whatever to put in its gizzard, and the grinding effect and the grinding action actually helps to break up the tough seeds and grasses and things that they eat. The same thing happens in the gut of these certain species of these little Luricariidae, and if they don't scrape the wood fiber off, then the fiber itself is what's in their gut to help them digest all of the green fibrous food that they eat. So having wood in the tank, if you've got any kind of pleco, is usually a good idea. It's never going to hurt them, and most of them will enjoy it, but there are a few species that actually really need it, and I do believe, at least according to my viewer, that the clown pleco, the one that I put in here, is one of those that does need it. And I didn't bother to look that up. I trust I'll take their word for it. I wanted to get some wood in here anyway, and I happen to have this piece downstairs, and I like it. It's one of the first pieces of wood I ever bought for any of my tanks. It's got the little hole in the middle, and you can see the little fish swim through it from time to time. So it's interactive in the tank, or at least I think of that as being interactive. It's something the fish can interact with, and that just gives the tank a little more personality, a little more, action, liveliness, whatever you want to call it. So there you go. It was just a little update here on my office tank. Got it all cleaned up. Going to be moving some of them plants out of there, and I got some wood added. And I called the store the other day. They are all out of those checkerboard barbs, so they are still going to be in the back of my mind. It's not like I'm committed to that's what's going to go in this tank again, but if I can find them again in the near future, I definitely would like to try them again. I thought they were really, really cool looking fish, and I'm really into the color purple, and I did not realize that they actually get really nice and purple color if kept in the right conditions. So I really want to try those again, but we'll see. It's just going to depend on whether they come around again. It's one of those hit or miss things. That is one of the benefits of a little locally owned mom and pop type fish store. They do have their pros and cons, just like the big chain pet stores, and I promise I am going to do that video where I sit down and I talk about big chain pet stores, and I'll probably do just that. I'll talk about the comparisons between big chains and little locally owned, we'll call them mom and pop fish stores. They're often just referred to as local fish stores or LFSs. FSs. Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. We'll get to that video in the very near future, I promise. So make sure you're subscribed, that way you won't miss it. Hope you enjoyed looking at my 10-gallon office tank here. See you real soon in the next one.